How many of you guys have run a precinct meeting before? Okay, so few, and so the rest of you haven't. So we're going to go through it A to Z like it's a caucus. And we will make some mistakes. How many of you guys run perfect precinct meetings? All right, so Thomas, you can come up. No. All right, so we're just going to grab this precinct host guide out of your packet. We're going to just kind of go through that.
Last group of maybe 30, we ran out. They don't have that stapled package.
Okay, so, but it is also included in your packet that's in there. It'll just say Republican Party Caucus Precinct Host Instructional Guide.
It is also available online.
So I want to welcome everybody out tonight to our precinct meeting. We're going to start out with a prayer by Brent Odenwalder, and then followed by a pledge. Marcel Lettre is going to do that.
Our Heavenly Father.
Please rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance.
Thank you, guys. So, when we checked in, did you notice the sign-in check sheet that they had? That's going to be very similar to the sheet that you guys are going to have to check people in. They just need to initial in the left-hand column. And if you're not like swamped with a zillion people, go ahead and have them check and verify that their email and their phone number is on there, or that they're accurate. And you can take a little bit longer time to do that if you're not swamped. How many of you guys went to the 2012 precinct meetings? Do you remember what they were like? There's a possibility they could be like that this year again. So, did you notice how many people were here helping check in? So normally when you check in, there's a couple other things that you're going to be doing. When you have people helping you check in, the rule of thumb pretty much is have one person for every 25 people you're expecting. It makes it tough to know because you really never know how many to expect. A lot of times we say gauge by the last year, but this year I'd probably say gauge by 2012. So if you had 100 people in your precinct in 2012, you want one person helping check in for every 25 people you're expecting. So how many people would you expect or need to help with check-in for? So you can take your check-in sheet and you can split it in half. You can make another copy. We had 2 copies, but we literally could have split it in 4 sections and had an A through F and like that. Just split it up into some alphabet so you can just go get in, check in a little quicker. All of you got a name tag? One of the things you would need to get when you come to your precinct, you need to have some type of a credential for the people that are authorized to vote in your precinct. So if they came and they're on the list, have them initial, give them their credential and their ballots, and then they can go sit down. On the list, it's also going to show who registered to vote online for the presidential preference. If they have selected to vote online for the presidential preference, I don't care if they come to your meeting and say, well, I know I registered to do it, but I couldn't figure out how, or I haven't done it, so I just want a paper ballot. Do you give them a paper ballot? No. Absolutely not. Thank you. So, no matter what their excuse is, do not give them a paper ballot.
We gotta have ID when they check in too.
So we're Republicans, so we request ID. When they check in, they show you their ID. And now, if they are not on your list that's printed, you need to make sure they are in fact in your precinct. So check their address, make sure they're in your precinct. If they're not, let them know, oh, well, you're not in this precinct, you might be in the one down the hall or something like that. So make sure they're in your precinct.
Are we gonna get maps of our precinct? Talks about on here,
So-
all these maps.
They're online and you can print them.
So where do we get these printouts of everybody that will show up? Is that supposed to be in our packet?
No, you're not going to have that yet. Because the pre-registration for the presidential election does not close until the 15th, and we have to have that information on those lists, so you'll get that later. So credential card and ballots. So in your packet, you should have something that looks like this. That's what you can make your credential cards out of. You can do it whatever color you want, but I like to do them in a different color so that it's not something that somebody could just come in with, because these are out there, anybody can make them. And then these are your ballots. You can make those in different colors for different rounds of voting, however you do that. Some people use different things for credentials. Some people use their sticky badges for a credential, and only the people with the badges can vote, or only people with badges with a certain sticker on it can vote. Some people actually go down to like the party stores and buy those wristbands that you can put on. So you can give them wristbands, and that way every time they go up to vote, you can mark on the wristband, you can mark on the credential that they voted, and you can just kind of keep track to make sure somebody doesn't try to sneak in 2 ballots or something. Because sometimes somebody will leave early and they'll give their ballot to somebody else and say, here, vote for me. Can they do that? No. Absolutely not, thank you.
If I were to number the credentials and then write that number down as a number that voted, would that be an inappropriate recording of the vote, since it's supposed to be secret ballot sometimes? That makes sense? If I number each credential 1 to 100,
Oh,
and then when they walk up and they vote or something, I can register that number on the credential as a person who voted?
yeah, you could do that. That would still be a secret ballot. As long as you protect the secret ballot, you can protect the integrity of the vote anyway, like that. You probably might have somebody in your meeting this year that are just observing. And somebody that comes in, they're not in your precinct or they're not registered Republicans, they can observe as long as you have the room for them. Who knows the voting rule for age? Who can vote in our precinct?
18 by the general election.
As long as they turn 18 by the general election, they can vote in our caucus. They can also vote in our online or in caucus presidential preference, because we did get that clarified by the RNC. So that is the same rule that applies there.
Another question. How old do they have to be a delegate? Is there 18 too?
Same thing, same thing. So, John, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Come up here. And we're going to read the party platform. So I'm going to let John do that because he's got a nice deep voice. And it goes to here. And you can follow along. That's right in your packet. That's right in our precinct rules.
Utah Republican Party State Party Platform as ratified at the 2009 State Convention. Preamble. We, the Republican Party of the great state of Utah, affirm our belief in God and declare our support for government based upon a moral and spiritual foundation. We affirm freedom for every individual as expressed in the Declaration of Independence and protected by the Constitution. We believe that citizens' needs are best met through free enterprise to help Utah to compete in a world marketplace. We believe that developing our human resources is essential to the future of Utah. We support the Utah Right to Work law.
Thank Okay, one thing that I just did that's pretty much a no-no is call somebody up to come do something like that. And that's because you want to make sure that they are comfortable doing things like that. So it's better to line that up beforehand. Even if you're doing it just right before the meeting, hey, would you mind doing this? Now, some precincts, they just like to have everybody take like one little paragraph and just read one paragraph, one plank. And that's okay too. Sometimes the precinct chair reads the whole thing, the vice chair, it doesn't matter. But it does need to get read. That is not an option. You do read the platform. I know some precincts think that we'll just have somebody just read them in their head and hurry and read them. We need to read them and read them out loud.
Can it be recorded?
You can have a recording of it and play the recording. Some people actually have a really cool recording of somebody with a really nice voice, and that is okay. Yes, you can do that. So, we have a really, really good platform. And this platform is our litmus test for choosing who our delegates are. Because we want our delegates to have a good moral compass, and we hope that they will support the platform. In fact, when we go through the election part, that's a very appropriate question to ask them. Do you support the party platform? If there are any planks that you disagree with, what are they? And you can ask that question. So then our delegates should also use this platform as their litmus test when they are out vetting the candidates. So they can choose candidates that actually uphold our values. That's why it's important to read that, so everybody can kind of understand what we are. Yeah, this is why we're Republicans. Yes, this is what we believe. So right after you do that, we have these little envelopes in our packets. They're the donation envelopes. What I would do is I actually would have this already filled out with my donation. And then I talk about why it's important, why do we need donations. We need them to perform the functions of our party. We need them to help get candidates elected. We need them to help reserve our locations. It costs money for our caucus locations. It costs money for our convention locations. And just different things. The mailers, when we send out call to convention, those cost a lot of money. So we do need money to function. In some counties and different parties, different states, what they do is they have each of their delegates will pay $50 for the opportunity to go be a delegate. So what we do is we ask if our precincts will help support our delegates by just making whatever kind of donation they can. If it's $5, if it's $50, we'll take anything. And the rule is, if it's less than $50, they don't have to fill this out if they don't want to. If they're donating more than $50, they do need to fill this out. And they can fill it out even if they're giving you $10 if they really want to. That's okay. Sometimes what I do is I'll spend $20 on all my materials for the caucus, and I'll just put down that I did an in-kind donation, and I'll explain that to them. It cost me $20 for the materials to run this precinct, and I'm donating that to the party as my in-kind donation. And that's okay to do. Then I actually would have my precinct secretary or treasurer send this around the room and keep an eye on it and gather it up at the end. Also, you can let them know about the Check-a-Buck program. It's that time of year when we're filing our tax returns. There's a little box on there that says you can send $2 to the party of your choice. Yes, I want to send it to the Republicans. You can do that. So you also have a packet that talks about the caucus rules and procedures. So that's a good thing for you guys to familiarize yourself with before the meeting. So if anybody has questions that come up during the meeting, you kind of know it, but also have a copy there with you. In case you don't quite remember it, you can refer back to that. It talks about all kinds of different things, ability to participate, about affiliating on election night. So when you have somebody come and they're not on your list, you do see that they do live in your precinct, and they have some type of, maybe their address has been changed, so their ID is wrong, but they bring in like a water bill that shows that they do live in your precinct boundaries, you can go ahead and do that, have them fill out the voter registration that comes from Ricky Hatch's office. And I'm hoping that you all got some of those. Did you get some voter registrations?
Yes. So put them in every pack.
Okay, so I don't know how many,
We don't have any more of those left.
all right. So you can make copies of these, you can find them online, you can go down to Ricky Hatch's office, you can call your district chair and say, hey, I didn't get any mail-in voter registrations. Maybe we'll just try to have some at each building, like Weaver High, Roy High, or stuff like that, so that the precinct officers can go grab some more if they need them. Normally, we only do like a few of these, but some years when we have a massive turnout, each precinct can do 20. Now, when they fill this out, you take it back, make sure that they filled it out completely, and make sure that they check the box that says they affiliate Republican. 2 years ago, I had somebody that got elected to precinct chair, and they checked the unaffiliated box. If they check unaffiliated, they cannot participate in our meeting, they cannot be elected to an office. So make sure you check that they checked the Republican box, and then we keep these. So have like a little box or something to stick these in. You can stick them in the same thing where you stick your, if people bring their pre-registration papers to Caucus, you can stick them in the same bin that you stick that in or whatever, but make sure we keep these and we stick them in our packet at the end of the day.
Everyone that comes to these, is that well, or just people that aren't ready.
Only people that aren't on your list, they have to fill these out. Even if they say, well, I'm a registered Republican, but you're not on my list, so I need you to fill one out.
Even if they get their card, card that you get it, you know.
If they have a voter registration card, then they probably better be on your list. If not, you better really check their address, because maybe they're in the wrong precinct.
Okay.
So can I just reiterate, just make sure I understand. So if someone comes in and they want to affiliate with the Republican, or if they claim to be Republican but are not on your list no matter what, they fill out a registration card.
If they're not on your list, they fill out a voter registration card.
One that I have here says mail.
Okay. So this is confusing, and I always tell Ricky this is confusing. It says mail-in voter registration form. It doesn't mean that you're filling out for the mail-in ballot. That's not what this means, but a lot of people get confused and think that's what it is. It's not. It just means this is a form that you can mail in to the county clerk.
But this is the one we use.
This is the one we use.
Do we allow them to retain that? Or do we keep
No, we keep that. We keep that. That goes in your packet at the end of the caucus, and it goes to your district chair.
Did you say if they're filling that out, they need proof that they're living within the precinct?
Yes, so if it's not on their ID, they need to bring in some type of a bill or something that shows that they are living in your precinct.
What was that form called again?
It's the State of Utah mail-in voter registration form.
We get that by downloading it?
You should be able to download it. It should be online. It's in our county clerk's office. We'll try to get some more available to you. I think we had a bunch, but they probably all went, so we'll make sure that we get some more.
Is it online?
Yes. You could probably find it at the Weaver County website or maybe at the Lieutenant Governor's website. Now we've got where it's talking about the agenda. So skip up there to that agenda. There is one thing that can be changed on this agenda. The agenda is set by the state party, so we cannot change anything else but one thing. And that's the order of our elections for precinct chairs, vice chairs, delegates. You can't change that. If your precinct wants to do that in a different order, that is just fine. And then 7 other business, that's where we do the presidential election.
Are we actually reading the registration, nominations, elections, all this stuff on this page?
No, not to the public. No, you don't need to read that out
So-
loud.
so-
So right now, where you get to the agenda, you just do some type of a welcome people. You do the prayer, you do the pledge, you do the reading of the state party platform, and then you can review the rules, procedures, and the duties of the delegates and precinct officers. And I like to do that right before we get into the elections. So say we're going to elect a precinct chair. I like to just let them know what the duties are of a precinct chair. Your biggest main duty is running the precinct meeting in 2 years. You're also on the County Central Committee, so they generally meet once a year. The precinct vice chair, normally most of what he does is help the chair. When I run my precinct meeting, I let the vice chair do the whole first part of the meeting, and then I generally will take over right around the election time. And then I'll just run the elections. I let my secretary handle the counting, the check-in, stuff like that, but I make sure that she has whatever materials she needs to get people checked in. I also, you can line up people to help your secretary, or you can ask your secretary to line up people to help you. Say we need about 1 person for every 25 people we're expecting. So, I think we're going to have a busy year. We might even have 150 people, so probably get 4 other people to help you with check-in.
Okay, we have at least one vice chair here who's needed to step up because the precinct chair, moved or something like that. So that's also, probably worth mentioning when you're thinking about, when you're talking about vice chair.
Right.
Would it be appropriate to ask someone to sit in one of those positions that just ask them to volunteer, even though it's an elected position like for example, a secretary, someone to help count the ballots? Would that be appropriate to ask someone to volunteer to help that?
Yes.
Okay.
Very appropriate. You can have, anybody in your precinct can help you with that things, any of those things.
Can the precinct chair or his vice chair be delegates?
Yes. You can be any of these positions simultaneously, except for there's 2 positions you can't be at the same time. Who knows what those 2 positions are?
County or state?
Chair and vice chair.
The chair and vice chair. Those are the only 2 positions you can't do at the same time. You can even be chair and secretary. But you can be chair and county delegate and state delegate and secretary if you want, but you cannot be chair and vice chair at the same time. Okay, so let's run through an election really quickly. You can self-nominate or somebody can nominate you from the floor. You do not need a second. So, I'm going to open up nominations for precinct chair. Do I have any nominations? Just play
Bob
with
Rowley.
me. Is he here?
He's right over there.
Hey, Bob,
Yeah.
do you accept that nomination?
Yeah, for the sake of this, yeah.
Okay, could you come up to the front of the room here?
So when you pre-register, you also have the option of putting down whether you want to be a delegate, for example. So where does that
Exactly.
show up?
So, I don't know if they have all the logistics worked out on that yet, but you should be able to go to utah.gop. And then they should, at about that time, they should have a tab up there that shows same-day ballot or absentee ballot or something like that.
So we've got to check that out before we go to our caucus.
Right. So he brings up a good point. You can go online and you can pre-register for your caucus. And while you walk through that, and Tony's going to walk through all that with us a little bit later, one of the options is, do you plan on running for any offices? And then you can check, yes, delegate, yes, precinct chair. And then that'll show up on an absentee ballot. So what happens is, we were required to set this up for people that couldn't come to the caucus, but it's supposed to be like a limited amount of people. It's not just for anybody that just doesn't feel like showing up. It's somebody that has to work or somebody that has sick kids. and they just really can't go to their caucus. So what they do is they will go to utah.gov and they will click on that same day ballot, vote in my precinct, and then it should be able to populate who's running. So it'll come up with some type of a ballot. You print out the ballot. There should be a number attached with the ballot so that we make sure people can't photocopy that and use that same ballot. It is a very unique number. Everybody's going to have a unique number. They're going to take that and they're going to check off who they want or write in who they want. And then they are going to take the ballot, which is a secret ballot. There's no name on that ballot. And they're going to put it in an envelope. They're going to seal the envelope. And then they are going to sign their name across the seal. Then they take a copy of their driver's license or other government ID, front and back. So that's on a piece of paper. And now they take that piece of paper and they just wrap it around the outside of this envelope. And then they send that with their spouse or trusted friend that's going to the meeting. And anybody can bring these in that's in that precinct, but you can only bring up to 3 because they didn't want people to just go around and get people to do this to vote for them. So now what happens is when they come into the meeting, they will take this over to the precinct chair and or vice chair. They take the ID, they look at the ID, they look and make sure they're in their precinct. Of course, if they weren't in their precinct, they wouldn't be able to have a printed out ballot. You know, hopefully all the checks are in place for that. They had that all in place last time and it worked well. And they check the signature and make sure it's the same signature. And if everything looks good, they take the ID and they hand it back to the person that brought it in. And then they're responsible for it. We do not keep IDs. Do not keep a copy of their ID. Send it back. Now, this will be their ballot. So I'm just going to stick it somewhere. I'm going to have one place that all these things are going to go. And now when we get to this point in the meeting, I'm going to pull this envelope out, or these envelopes out, and I'm going to say we received 3 absentee ballots, 4, and then I'll read the names, and then I will, in front of everybody, I will open them up and pull them out. I don't look at who they voted for. And then I make sure whatever I'm using to collect ballots, I make sure they know there's nothing in there, and I'm going to stick this one in there, or these 3 in there. And one reason why you say the names out loud is you say, you know, this one is for George Washington. And Marcel says, George is here, he's right there in the back. Well, you can't vote absentee and in the precinct at the same time. So then we're just going to dispose of this ballot. All right, so.
Question. That person who votes early would only know about people who registered online ahead of time.
Exactly.
Or write-in.
I believe they might have a write-in option on there. I'm not sure if they will or not. So that's another reason to register for a position that you're going to run for.
So this part of the meeting kind of a rain dance because probably very, very few people here are going to need to deal with this, but we need to know as being prepared
right.
as precinct chairs to be able to know how to do it, just in case you get a couple of these.
Just in case you get some. Now, there's other things. Somebody asked me, well, one day, one precinct meeting, somebody brought me in a paper that had 5 signatures on it, or I don't remember how many he said, and they said, here, these people want to vote for me. Absolutely not. You have to follow the proper protocol, and that's the protocol for people that, like our firemen or whatever, can't come to their meeting. There is another ballot, and it's for only missionaries or military that are outside of Utah. And what they do is they have to contact the state party, find out who their precinct chair and vice chair are, send them an email 72 hours before the caucus they have to say, I live in your precinct, I want to vote in the caucus. The precinct chair and vice chair make sure that they are, they have to say, I'm in the military or I'm on a mission. They make sure that they are within their precinct boundaries and that they are legitimately on a mission or military. It can't be I'm on vacation, it can't be any other reason but those two reasons. And then the precinct chair will send them back an email. Yes, you are eligible to vote in our precinct. These are the people that are running. Just let me know who you want to vote for. Now the missionary sends an email back. This is who I want to vote for, this. And so now the precinct chair and vice chair, they'll print out that, and that is the ballot. And they also let the people know beforehand, we got a ballot from a missionary, and this is a ballot. And it will be counted in all rounds of voting.
Okay, I'm going to be down in eastern Utah working at the Eastern Jeep Safari, but I want to run again for precinct chair and state and county delegate. How do I do that when I'm down there?
You can run for any office and not attend the caucus. It's just fine. You can either have yourself put online that you're going to run for those, or you can just have somebody nominate you at the meeting.
Well,
So-
the vice chair could just announce it at that meeting. I mean, she's here too.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
so she could announce it, and then,
Okay, another question I get a lot of times is, well, my wife can't come, can I do a proxy vote for her? Absolutely not. All right, so back to our nominations. Do I have any other nominations for precinct chair?
I nominate Travis Weaver.
Okay, Travis. Where are you, Travis? Travis Weaver, do you accept that nomination?
No.
I nominate
He felt
John
that
Johnson. Do you accept that nomination? All right, come on. That's it.
he's a team player.
Okay, let's get at least one more, just for fun.
Oh, I nominate Dale.
Okay, Del Benyon.
All right,
Do you accept that nomination?
I have a question. If someone is nominated and they decline the nomination, can they still, can the precinct still put them on the ballot?
No.
Be voted in?
No, if they are not willing to take on that position, don't do that.
You don't want him to.
Yeah. Who can explain to me the rule for speaking? Now we've got these three candidates up here running for precinct chair. How many minutes can I give them?
You have to lose the nomination closed.
Right. Okay.
3 minutes to 5.
Exactly. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to close the nominations.
Was there any people who wanted to self-nominate?
Yeah, and people can self-nominate too. So I've had a motion to close nominations. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor of closing nominations for precinct chair, vote aye. Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right. Well, let's go now. We've got 3 minutes per election. So precinct chair has one position, so that's 3 minutes split between 3 people. If I had 6 people up here, that's 30 seconds. I think that's kind of low. I would sneak and give them a minute. So we got a minute speech. Do you guys want to give a speech or just pretend? Okay, blah, blah, blah. So when I'm doing their elections, it would be nice to have somebody already lined up and prepared with a smartphone or some type of a timer to time them so that they get the exact same time for each one. And you can also have little red cards and yellow cards if you want, but for that short of time, I probably wouldn't. I'd probably just have the timer go off and then cut off their time. So yes, you want a timer and you want to keep them timed, but sometimes you might want to have a few questions for them. You might, as a precinct, you might want to have them state before they speak if they support the platform or which parts they disagree with.
It says 3 minutes per delegate seat, so if we got 2 state delegates, That means we could have 6 minutes. That means they
Exactly.
each get 2 minutes, right?
So if you had 2 delegate seats, you get 3 minutes per each seat. So you get 6 minutes. If you have 3 delegate seats, then you have 3, 6, 9. What if you have like 5 county delegates? How many minutes do you get? 15. Okay, and then you just split that between the delegates. So, okay. All right, now we're going to vote. Here's your
Allow the audience
candidates.
to ask them questions?
Yeah, you can ask them questions.
No, the audience can ask them questions. Is that kind of-
Yes.
Shoot, brother.
I would do that, but don't let one person monopolize it all, because sometimes you'll get that one person that just wants to keep asking question after question. No, you cannot speak until after everybody else has had a turn to speak. But maybe just allot a few minutes for questions and then cut that off. Don't just let that keep going on and on. All right.
You just want to be aware that if you're not in control, someone else might take control.
So take your pink ballot and vote for one of these people. If you vote for somebody that's not on here, it's a spoiled ballot. You can use most anything. Some people use a hat to gather. Some people use a box with a hole cut in it, like you're going to make a Valentine box for your kids. You know, whatever you have, a can with a hole cut in the lid.
It was a pink one.
The pink ballot. Pink ballot.
And when you may want to point out that the candidates can also vote for themselves.
Of course.
Are we not to fold the ballots?
Now, if you're voting for delegates,
Makes it harder to open them.
and you have 3 delegate positions, you can write up to 3 names on the ballot.
Donation one, just one can plastic.
So say you've got 3 state delegate allocations.
This is
This one
precinct
is
chair.
precinct chair, so it's just 1 person per precinct chair. But for state delegates and county delegates, most precincts are going to have more than 1. So you can write, if you have 3 delegates allocated to your precinct, make sure that everyone knows they can write up to 3 names on the ballot.
Can they write one name 3 times?
No, but they can write 1 name, or they can write 2 names, or they can write 3 names. They can write up to 3 names.
If you only have 3 nominations, you have to have a nomination.
If you only have 3 nominations, say this was for our 3 state delegate positions and nobody else wanted to run, then you say, I move that we vote these guys in by acclamation, all in favor, and then you just do it by acclamation.
The last precinct elections that we had, a group of people that were in my precinct asked if they could just all vote for they wanted, and then the top 3 votes got those positions.
Oh,
Is that acceptable?
okay. 2 years ago, that was not acceptable. We had to have a majority vote, which meant that everybody that got elected had to have over 50%. So 50% plus up to the next integer. So in this year's election, they're leaving it up to the precinct chairs. You can choose multiple ballots and keep voting over and over and over till you get the majority on every position, and then keep dropping the lowest one off, lowest one off, lowest one off every round. Or you can decide as a precinct that you just want to do a plurality vote. We just want to do 1 round of voting, or even maybe 2 rounds of voting.
So you can do what they voted to do last time, and let the top 3 vote.
You can, we changed that this year, so that you can do that. And that's so you don't have to keep voting. I mean, 1 year, we had 13 people running for 3 delegate seats, and it took forever.
That's why Marcia says, you just vote one.
So you can just take do it 1 time.
Right. Right. Now, what you need to do is you need to establish that rule before you actually do the voting. Because it's kind of not cool to do it after you get the votes and then decide, oh, well, I like that guy, so let's just do plurality. You know? Did you have a question?
What is plurality?
Okay, plurality means that they can win with less than 50% of the vote. It's just the most votes. Right. Another thing that they're allowing this year that as our county we don't recommend because we haven't used it really much at all, and that's preferential voting where you write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if 7 people are running, you rank them in order of who you like best. I like this person best, I like that person second best. And then the vote counters, they separate them into they take everybody's one vote and put it into that candidate's pile, and then they count them, and then they eliminate the lowest, and then they take his votes out and put them into their next preference. And it's a little bit complicated, you kind of have to know how to do it. So I don't recommend it. But yeah, so as your precinct asks if they want to do multiple ballots till they get a majority, or if they just want to do 1 or 2 ballots and just take the highest vote getters.
Is that a decision that your precinct has to decide upon, or is that something as precinct chair you can decide?
I would decide it as a precinct. Did I have another question?
But
Okay.
the precinct chair or the attending high official can make that call.
Right, and they can say, we've been given our choice, this is what I recommend, is everybody okay with that? All right, that's what we'll do. Okay, so there's different ways you can count votes. Now, generally your precinct secretary can help count the votes, and you want to have another couple volunteers help her. There are a few people that are not allowed to help. These 3 people are not allowed to help. They're running for an office, they cannot go count. But they can have a poll watcher. Any person that's running for an office, they can ask someone to be a poll watcher for them and just go monitor how these guys are doing their counts. So, do we want to do, in our precinct today, do we want to go with a plurality or a majority? Which way do you guys do? How many of you guys just want to do? How many of you guys want to do just 1 round of voting and just highest vote getter gets it?
Yeah.
All right, how many of you guys want to go multiple rounds and a majority? They have to get a majority. All right, so I move that the plurality wins. So we have Bob with 21 votes, John with 14, and Dell with 23. So our new precinct chair for next cycle is Dell Benyon.
Thank you. I love you people.
Could you also say the second lowest is vice chair?
Yes! Congratulations.
No, you need to vote for each
Or
one.
condolences.
Yeah, by themselves. But a lot of times that person that took second place will still run for vice chair, and a lot of times they'll get a few sympathy votes. So it's,
So if your precinct decides to go with multiple voting, at this point you drop off Dale's name and you go to the...
okay, so if we wanted to go multiple round.
Why did you leave the 2 on there again?
All right, so this is the scenario. If you were going to do multiple rounds of voting, now you would have to make sure somebody had another ballot, and now they're going to be voting on either Bob or Dale. And then they would go and recount those. And then when you just have 2 people, you're going to get a majority.
Do you have to keep the ballots?
Okay, good question. Do you need to keep the ballots? As a precinct chair, I keep the ballots, and I keep a copy of the tally sheet for myself. The tally sheet, we have a tally sheet that goes back to in our packet and back to our district chair. Can you bring me a copy of that tally sheet that we have to fill out?
Come up on the screen behind you.
I don't know if we have it in here.
We don't have it in here, though. Yeah.
Everybody should have one of these. If you don't, make sure you grab one for your precinct. This is the tally sheet. So now, elected officers, so put the precinct chair, list them there, and how many votes they got.
Here we go.
Precinct vice chair, and you put all that down here, and then the state and county delegates. Okay, these ballots, you will keep just as backup. If anybody says, well, I don't think that they really got all these votes. Well, if you ever need it to back up, just keep it for a while and then chuck it. On here, you'll notice some of these say state delegate or alternate. This is something, Weaver County has never had alternate delegates before. This year, we're under the state umbrella for allowing alternate delegates because it was one of the things that was mandated in Senate Bill 54. And after this meeting, we're going to kind of talk a little bit about that. So one of the things is they said you need to allow for alternate delegates. So say you have 2 state delegates in your precinct, you can either vote in 1 or 2 alternate delegates. So you can vote in at least 1, but not more than how many you already have. County delegates, sometimes we raised our amount of county delegates so much that for the most part, anybody in the precinct that wants to run for county delegate can just have a county delegate. And last time I had to kind of beg people to be a county delegate. So I don't think I could have got another person to be alternate delegate, but you can have, so in my precinct I have 7 county delegates. I could have had 1 to 7 alternate delegates, and that gets kind of hairy. So I'd probably just do like 1 or 2.
Alternate can go in his place.
Only if they make sure that they let their district chair know, let their precinct chair know, who lets the district chair and the county know, and they have to make that change so that when they go down to the state convention, they have the right credentials, exactly. Because we don't want them to have a problem checking in at state convention. That gets really hairy.
So the precinct chair, then, do they pick the alternate that replaces them, or how do you do that?
Yeah, the precinct chair would do that.
And Linda, before we move on, clarify, if you replace a delegate with an alternate, is it a one-time thing, or they're now the new delegate?
No, they're now the new delegate.
Right. It's not just like they can't go to this meeting, so the alternate goes, and then they're back next time. When you replace a delegate, it's permanent for that season.
How many years are all of these offices for? It's a 2-year term. And that's one thing that I like to make sure that I let my precinct know. This is a 2-year commitment. The first year, so for delegates, they will attend their county or state convention, which is a nominating convention. They select who's going to be the nominee for different positions in the party. And for the second year, the odd year, it's going to be an organizing convention. They vote for who's going to be the party chair, the party vice chair, their district chairs and vice chairs, and whatnot. So it's a 2-year commitment. Generally, you'll get a call to convention in the mail, and sometimes in our county, we try to keep people informed by email. That's why we like to request that anybody that gets elected to a position, a precinct position or a delegate position, make sure as precinct officers you get their good contact information, an email that they actually look at, not one that they send all their junk to that they never look at, and a good phone number for them. And they are representing you. You should be able to contact them. And the party should be able to contact them. And the candidates should be able to contact them. That's why we're hiring them to do this job in our behalf. So,
Then would it be appropriate that evening that chair, precinct chair, or delegate is elected, that they then give out their information at that meeting, at the caucus?
Yes, I do. I will give my information when I am elected to something. Anybody in that precinct that wants my information, I give it to them. If you have a card, you can give it to them. Just write it on a paper, anything. Because there are actually some people that like to stay in touch with their delegate or their precinct chair for various issues. And it's, you know, it's great.
On your tally sheet, you've got compiler and witness, is that the chair and his designee, or who is it?
So it could be pretty much anybody, whoever compiles this sheet. So if that's your secretary, then they would sign that. And then if you are the precinct chair, you would just sign as the witness. And sign that and print your name so we can read it, so it's legible. Make sure you have this top part all filled out. There's 2 in here. You can keep the yellow copy. Now, right after we do our officer and delegate elections,
On this tally sheet, there's nothing for county delegates. What's the?
I'd probably just cross off state and put county. Yeah, this is a new sheet, so it's kind of weird. Hopefully there's enough spots.
It's a sheet from the state, so I think it focuses on the state stuff.
I barely have enough spots to do mine, so. Okay, so when you get this sheet all filled out, well, actually, we're gonna do the presidential election. Other business, so after we voted on our officers and our delegates, then we're gonna do an election for president. And I'm hoping that the state party is going to give us a ballot that has the names of whoever's left on that ticket. And so we're going to not give people a ballot if they've registered online. We're just going to give them a ballot if they did not register to vote online. So then you would do this like most any other vote, except for obviously Donald Trump's probably not going to be in your precinct meeting to give a very entertaining speech. So you could ask if there is anybody in your precinct that would like to represent either of the candidates, or one of the 3 candidates, or whoever's left. And if you have somebody that's really passionate about somebody, you can give them a minute to talk about what's good about their candidate. I didn't think that was necessary, but they did include that in the instructions, that you can ask if somebody wanted to come represent one of the candidates. And then you just vote. I think pretty much by the time you get to your meeting, you've got your mind made up who you're going to vote for. And so your ballot will have those people on it. If you write somebody in, it's a spoiled ballot. So you need to check one of the people that are on there. They're going to take these statewide. You're going to put the votes on here, and then the state wants you to take a picture of your ballot and then email it to them. And I think they might have included the email address in here or in a recent.
Caucus results.
Oh, good, right there.
So do we have them like write it down on a piece of paper? Do we have them raise their hands? What do we do?
So for president,
Yes.
I'm hoping that we have a ballot with their names on it exactly. So we'll just probably make enough copies for our precincts, and they'll vote on that. Those ballots need to go back in your packet and back to your district chair. We do need those. This is the first time ever for an all online / caucus presidential preference vote. And so they want you as precinct officers to keep really track of your tallies and your ballots and everything. They want that back. So all of that's going to go back in your packet and back to your district chair. Your district chair hopefully will contact you and let you know if they are going to be picking that up from you personally, or if they have somebody in your building that's going to take all of those and get them back to him. If you have not written your precinct's name, how many allocated delegates you have on your packet, make sure you do that. That's on that card that you received when you checked in. Okay, so we'll do that part. We'll have our people count that. We'll announce the results to our precinct. This is who won in our paper ballot in our precinct. But we also have some online votes for our precinct that we don't have yet, and they should get that to us. I'm not sure when or how all that's going to happen, but they want the results that night because they want the results to be as accurate as possible, as soon as possible, because people want to know.
Are we going to get those ballots in county, or exactly in the county?
Yes. You will get the presidential ballots and you will count them. So have your secretary and her helpers count them.
The online ones, you'll have
The online ones, oh, the online, so the state party or the RNC, whoever will be tallying that. We have a company that we've partnered with that we've hired to do all of that. And so they will tally that. They'll take our tally from our paper ballots and they'll combine them and they'll let us know who won in our precinct. Now, we as state delegates, we do not vote on president. What we do is we go to the state convention and we vote for people to be national delegates. So we have 40 national delegates. One is our state party chair, one is our national committee man, one is our national committee woman, and I think about 25 of them are at-large seats, and the other ones are within districts, so many in each congressional district, I believe.
How are they nominated?
So they have to file by the day after caucus. I think it's March 23rd that they have to file with the state party saying that they want to run to be a national delegate.
So we're, in our caucus meeting, we're going to vote for who we want as a president.
Yes. There is absolutely
And
no
we're sending
presidential primary
delegates
this
to
year.
the state to vote for other delegates to vote for what? The president?
National delegates. Okay.
What?
So
What
across the state, there is no primary this year for president. No primary. This is the vote for president, for Republican president this year. And so the whole state, we compile that data for the whole state. If there is one candidate that receives a majority, that's 50% plus whatever it is to the next integer. So 50% plus a half or plus one. So that person, if they've received a majority, a simple majority, they will be, who are delegates, all 40 of them will be bound to that one candidate.
On the first ballot.
Bound on the first ballot at the national convention. They are unbound after that. If it goes to a brokered convention, they can vote for whoever they want. If there isn't a candidate that receives the majority, so normally you'd have to have like 3 candidates for that to happen. Say one got 30%, one got 30%, one got 40%. Our 40 delegates would be allocated proportionally. So 30% would go to this candidate, 30 to this one, 40 to this one. And they are bound for that for the first round. Second round, they're unbound. That's what this is. It's like a big straw poll, which is all our presidential primary is anyway, because it's the national delegates that will be voting in the convention, and they're bound by what we as a whole party say we want them to do.
You mentioned that we vote here in our precincts on the president, you know, who we want. And that they take it from online too. Who determines if they've already voted in the precinct or online?
So when you checked in over there, there was a column on there that says voted online or registered to vote online.
Okay.
There will be a Y in there.
That they've already voted.
That they've already voted online, or that they said they were going to vote online.
Now, the option on there, when you go to register as a...
So do we know what their vote is? Count it?
No.
When you go on there,
Okay, let him
we
finish.
take them out from the vote then? I just-
Yes, they can't vote.
Yeah, make sure that they do not vote
They won't get a ballot.
In the presidential.
in the presidential.
May I point out, when you register, that you're gonna register for your caucus, it gives you the option to say whether you're gonna vote for president online,
Right.
or if you're gonna vote in.
We're actually gonna go through that. Tony's gonna do that for us, and if somebody wants to be a guinea pig, we'll let him do that in just a few minutes. The election judges, they're just somebody that's gonna help, like the county clerk and his elections team. They'll help with being poll watchers, or they'll be the ones that are checking you in, things like that. So if there's anybody in your district, in your precinct that wants to do that, make sure you write them down. We're gonna get that information to the county clerk, and then he will contact them.
And those aren't elected, they volunteer.
Yeah, that's just a volunteer job, if somebody wants to do that. All right, and then at this point, you just say, we've finished all of our business. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I make a motion, I second it. All in favor? Aye, and then you're all gone, right? And if people want to hang around after and write down the name of who's representing them, then they can stay in touch with them.
One thing I was gonna say is that when we're doing the elections for the delegates and so on, and officers, we need to make sure that prior to that, there has to be a count on the attending cards, so you know that the number of votes that you have turned in matches the credential card. Otherwise, you're going to be messed up.
Right, and you know what? That's one thing that they don't actually say in here, but when we go to like our state central committee meetings or whatnot, we like to know before we vote how many people are credentialed. And it's a good thing to know before you vote, because if you have 100 people credentialed and you get 120 ballots, there's a problem and you might need to redo that part of the election, but yeah.
Something about the rooms. Not all the rooms will have an easel or a chalkboard.
Or a flag.
Or a flag, so they need to either bring in an easel and something to write on, so they can, put the names up.
Okay, so, and also if you're meeting in a school, a lot of times they don't like you to use their whiteboard markers. So what I like to do is, I like to go to my room that I'm going to be meeting at, and I like to see what they have. Do they have a flag? If they don't, I can bring a little flag, or we've even sometimes in some of our meetings had somebody pull up a flag on their smartphone. So, just, yeah, on more than one occasion. So, I would bring my own markers, because they don't like you using their markers. So bring your own dry erase markers, not permanent markers, because that doesn't make any good friends at all. At the end of your meeting, I would ask everybody to please look around them and clean up their area, make sure that we leave this room as cleaner than we found it. So it's just some courtesy, some housekeeping, things like that. Just know if you don't have a whiteboard, maybe you can bring a little whiteboard, or you can even just get some paper to write their names on it, just something. I also like to bring a few other things. I like to bring extra paper. Can anybody guess why? Okay, if you have like a huge caucus and you weren't planning on that many people, you only printed 50 ballots and now you have 100 people there. This is a great emergency supply. But with this, I don't bring just this. Scissors. And then I make sure my trusty secretary can go and cut some new ballots, mark them however you want, whatever, to make sure that they're yours, they're unique. Whether it's a different color. I bring some little plastic bags. I will put like spoiled ballots in here or anything like that. Sometimes I'll put all my ballots in here. at the end, keep those, send them back to the state. You have your packet that goes back to the state. So let's hurry and go through this. Did you all get this? If not, you'll hear what we're talking about. Let's go through this and see if you can answer these. Who can participate in a caucus? Registered Republicans that live in your precinct boundaries. 18 by the general election. Great. Okay. What is the best tool for the precinct chair and caucus host to help them know how to run their meeting? That caucus host guide. Did you see that caucus host guide? It walked you through A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Right straight through. Okay, what is the same-day ballot? Do you remember that? That goes in that envelope. It's something that somebody votes that day, they put it in the envelope, they sign it, they seal it, they sign their name across it, they put their ID with it. That's the same-day ballot.
He was an absentee ballot.
Generally, it's an absentee ballot. We just call it a same-day ballot. So, all right. If someone pre-registered to vote online at the presidential preference, but they didn't vote online, and they say, hey, I didn't vote online, can I get a paper ballot?
No.
All right, good.
Come around home and do it.
All right, what am I supposed to do with all the flyers that the candidates give me? I didn't cover that. What do we do with the flyers that they give us? Yeah, just put them out on a table, and anybody in your precinct can take them. But especially whoever gets to be the delegates, I would make sure that they have some of that information. So that's kind of a beginning of their vetting the candidates. Great. All right. How many people do I need to get me to help with the sign-in table?
1 per 25.
Okay, 1 per 25 people that you're expecting. All right, what kind of credential can I use to show who can participate to vote? I cheated and I listed it right down there below you. And that's just a few ideas of what different people use. Okay, do we have to read the platform?
Yes.
And what is the $50 rule for donations? I like that rule.
If it's $50 or more, they have to put it on the.
If it's $50 or more, they have to write it on the envelope. That they have to fill that information out. Under 50, they can just put it in there and just leave it.
They don't even have to put their name, they just put it in there.
Yeah. So, and what is an in-kind donation?
Expenses incurred.
Yeah, the stuff you bought for your precinct, that can be an in-kind donation. And yeah, I do. I would probably just take the receipt and just stick it in there and say this is my in-kind donation. How long do candidates get to speak?
30 seconds.
They get to speak?
At least 30 seconds.
At least 30 seconds, okay. So 3 minutes per election per position. So if you have 3 delegates, how many minutes do you get to split between those? All of them. So if there's 3 delegate positions, how many minutes is that?
3 total.
That's 9 minutes split between however many you have running. Good. All right.
Question, Linda. If you go to a second round of balloting, would you allow the candidates each respective rebuttal?
You can decide that in your precinct. Some precincts like that, some precincts just want to get done and get out of there. All right. And what's multiple round balloting and preference voting? We just went over that. Is everybody clear on that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And majority and plurality, that's if you have to get over 50% or not. Okay. What's the one thing on the agenda that your precinct can change?
Order of elections.
Order of elections, with the exception of presidential, that goes last. I think they want to make everybody hang on to get to that point that they really want to do. Yeah.
Are we allowed at the end to tell the precinct how they voted?
Yeah, you can tally that and say this is our result for our precinct. Exactly. All right.
For those who are there.
Make sure they know there's online votes too, though, that aren't part of that.
We don't know.
But you'll know how many of those there are.
All right, I'm gonna turn this over to Noel and to Tony, and they're gonna go over some online stuff for you guys. Noel, you wanna come up and take over?
WCRGOP.org. So if you close that up, it'll come up. If you scroll down a little bit, we have it right here. There's some things here that are real helpful for people. We get some of the most common questions are, where's my caucus meeting? So people need to first know their precinct. They can find that there on this spot here. They can click here and it will take them to the Lieutenant Governor's site. You put in your address and it'll tell you what precinct you're in. So put in 5279, who's our guinea pig? Put in your address.
Street number.
You might not necessarily need this for presidential, but I want to go through all these online tools here. So it saves a lot of phone calls for people. Now, I think they asked for the address now, Tony, not you have to put the whole address now, they changed that. Last week, you only had to put the number and then the street below it. Okay, caucus for your precinct. He's on South Ogden 6, okay? So I don't know what this other stuff is. What have they put in here? This is new from today. I was on there this afternoon and didn't see this.
Caucus locations for the different
For
parties.
the Republican Party, okay. So what this is in Club Heights Elementary. They've got that on there. So that's new. They uploaded those files. Okay, great. So go back to the front page. I'll show them. Go to our file.
Which one?
The caucus locations. Because that's only been on since tonight. So what were you on? South Ogden 3?
6.
South Ogden 6. So scroll down to South Ogden 6 and show them where that is. Okay, Club Heights Elementary. All right? So we sent that information to the Lieutenant Governor a while ago and they've uploaded it. So you can probably save that step now. So the next thing up there is the presidential preference and caucus registration. So hit that. This is where you'll register if you just want to do the online presidential voting. If you don't want to do presidential voting online, you just show up to your caucus meeting, okay? I just probably went over
Does it
that.
allow you to register ahead but not vote?
Yes, either or.
And
So
we'll
you
go
register
through
for
that,
the
right,
caucus.
we'll go through that right now.
So let's just do a registration. So you hit the green button and register. And it's just for one person. You can't do it for two, so just check out. So you may have people that just want to do this. They have to do it by the 15th. And they can just go do the presidential thing online and not even study about it.
When does it open for people to vote on? Is it the day of the caucus?
Yes,
Okay.
it's the day of caucus. And I think it's like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning.
7 a.m. to 11 p.m.
To 11 p.m. all day. Yep. Okay, so let's keep filling this out. Now, here, okay, so I had somebody call me today, Tony, maybe you know the answer to this. They didn't have their voter ID number.
Not required. What's your?
Okay.
And let me show you that in a second here. Okay, can everybody see these red asterisks? Any field that has a red asterisk by it is required. Any field that doesn't, like this one and your voter registration, those are not required.
Okay.
If you happen to have your voter registration, then you'll know for sure that yours is lining up correctly. But they're pretty good about matching these names to your voter registration. That's why that's optional.
Where do you get that anyway?
You can get it from the county. You can probably find it at the state website.
You probably don't need it. I
But
haven't
you don't
seen
need it.
anybody
You
that has it.
probably
If you put in your
don't
date of
need it.
birth or your address, they'll know who you are.
So here's the important questions, and you need to watch some of these because there's some mutually exclusive things here.
So this says, will you be voting for the presidential preference online or in person? So this is where you can do it like you guys just asked.
Now notice the rest of this page changes depending on what you're picking here. If you pick that you will be voting online for the president, it changes some of these disclaimers and stuff. If you pick in person, you don't have to agree to this waiver down here that you chose to vote online. You're going to do it in person. If you do pick online, it's also asking, are you planning on attending your caucus meeting? That's going to be helpful with the printouts that get done. So if you say, yes, I'm coming to precinct, that gets noted on our list that get printed out. If you say no, you're not going to attend the caucus meeting.
So if they say no and they show up, how do we know that they voted online?
If they say no here, this doesn't affect their presidential choice. This is the only thing that matters about whether you're giving them a ballot or not. If they pick online here, it'll be noted on the list, you don't give them a ballot. If they say in person here, they won't be allowed to vote online. So they can request a ballot because the list will say they are not voting online. You give them a ballot. That's why this is probably the most important checkbox on the entire thing. Because this determines whether they will receive a ballot in person or not. And it's up to the precinct chairs to enforce that. Very important. You must check the list. You must check ID. If it says yes, that they vote online, no ballot for them. Period. Okay, so are you going to vote online or in person? You're going to do online. You're planning on attending a caucus meeting? I sure hope you do. Okay, do you plan on running for any state, county, delegate, or precinct office? If you say no, nothing happens. If you say yes, this is what we were talking about earlier. You can check these boxes. If you don't check a box here, you can still be nominated at your precinct meeting. This is not have to check it or you can't run. This just helps populate the list. It will get on the state website, the county website, that you are running for these positions. Absentee people will see those lists, so they will know to vote for you if they want to. So this, again, is informational only. It helps the lists get populated. You plan on running for any of these?
How do precinct chairs know that they're going to get a list?
The precinct chairs will get a list with this information on it as well, yes.
If you decide that, if you register that you're going to vote online, you have to vote online. That's all. It's not a big deal. You got till 11 o'clock at night to do it. So if you need to borrow somebody's computer, you'll be sent information. You'll be sent a PIN number to your cell phone that you'll use when you go to the voting software. So this will keep going through it, Tony. It'll generate some other things that you'll need to know if you want to vote online.
And you'll notice that email address and cell phone are required. If you want to do the online, you have to provide a good email address that you will get email at, that you'll check, and a good cell phone number that can be texted. Don't give a home line, a landline, your work office number. It has to be a cell phone that has texting capability.
And you will get a PIN number, and you have to use that when you vote.
That's the current plan.
So if you say you're going to vote online, it is only for
Presidential.
elections.
Correct.
All your local seats and stuff that you would vote for, they will still get a ballot when you come.
Correct. And they'll do that
It
across.
only affects presidential, correct. And then you have to agree to all these things. Read that. Tell me you agree to it. Okay. Hit the complete registration, processes it. He'll get an email, probably within a few minutes. Some people get it like in seconds. It's within a few minutes at most.
So you're recommending all of us pre-register? Who has to?
If you want to vote online, yeah. But if you're going to the caucus meeting,
So you don't have to
I actually like, the thing I like about pre-registering is we get good emails and phone numbers from people. The one thing we have as a party to try to get a hold of people is we don't get emails and phone numbers. And so if you register online, they're validated, so we know how to get a hold of you. So we're not trying to find a way to run the party and get a hold of precinct chairs and communicate with each other. So in that sense, I really, really like the online registration because we know our data quality is going to be good. If we get the handwritten stuff like we get through, you know, it can be a little bit hard to read. It could be a little bit hard to read the writing, or somebody might type something and they might type Comcast and not put the S in there, or they might talk .com and type .co, and then they become bad emails. So if you register online, we get good stuff. So that part of it I like. It's just your preference if you want to do it online or not. So, okay, Tony, we got that. We're going to go to the next step. That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
So you just registered online with presidential.
So you just fill out the form. It's just like filling out a form, anything that you've been on the internet. It's pretty common.